All right, Higherside chatters, jumping right into part 2 of the Armenia tour. We start with Dvin, or Dween, as some people pronounce it, and its unexcavated buried pyramid. So, Dvin was an ancient Armenian city that was at its height during the 5th century. It was a pretty important hub along the Silk Road, so for Armenians in that era, it was like an international world's market, really the only place to find things from other areas of the world along this massive trade route. Now, there's not much to see here currently because in the year 893, it was all leveled by a massive earthquake. So I'm sure there's actually tons of excavation in the area worth doing. You can see artwork and carvings in the rubble still, so many years later, just laying around, 1,000 years old, not covered up, not in a museum somewhere. But again, the point of this stop is the 7-step pyramid that we're told is buried under this hill, and I'm going to let Vazgen and the local researchers explain it to you and tell you what they found.
He said that the building with art was underneath of this part, right. And now it is covered by the earth.
Okay.
He saw himself all this building. They just cover it by the earth in order the local people not to come to destroy it or to spoil it.
Right. So there's a building inside this.
Yes.
How interesting.
It's a class building, just destroyed one.
Are you going to crumble down there, Graham?
He said it likes dome of the church. It's in fact he means pyramid.
Right.
He's saying that it was built by red tufa stone. They saw it.
So what year did he see this building?
2-3 years ago when they opened it. Yes, they open and afterwards they close it again.
So it's still there?
Yes, it is still there, and on the doors of the building there are some ornamentations.
Are there any plans to uncover it further?
Okay, Mr. Vazgen says that after founding this, he turned to a Ministry of Culture, but they didn't answer.
Right. No archaeologists have done any excavation here?
Եկել գնացել եմ, դաժե մի հատ հիմար բան ասեցին, որ Մոնղոլի դամբարան է։ Իմ բանի ժամանակ այդ բանը գցեցին։
Ինքը հեթանոսական ավ է։
Իհարկե հեթանոսական է։ Ասա ես հնագետներին ասել եմ, իրանք նույնիսկ սուտ ինֆորմացիա բան
even they said something that he is considered to be not right.
Մի խոսքով իրանք չգիտես ինչ որ ուրիշ բաներ են ասում, այդ հնագետները, ինչպես միշտ։
They say everything besides the pyramid and they change the history as always.
Right.
How far?
They've not actually investigated it. No excavation.
No excavations were done by archaeologists. It was done by one individual, just he wanted to dig to find some treasures, and all of a sudden he found it. He said that in their house he kept some stone which was found from here, and there is some inscription on the stone.
Right. So what we're looking at is a deliberate burial of an ancient building.
Այսինքն ինչ որ ստեղ կա, կարելի է ասել հին շինության պատկածը հին շինություն։
Հեթանոսական տաճարներ են։
A bit like Göbekli Tepe.
Mainly kind of, he says that can be pagan temple.
How far beneath this dirt would we have to?
2.5.
Սրա վերևը մի վարքյան 5 մետրից ավել, այսպես բուրգ է։ Այս հողմշակողը ժամանակին տաշեց ցրեց։
So first, here was covered by earth approximately 5 meters. Afterwards, they smoothed the area, and then here it goes 3 meters depth.
So we'd have to dig 3 meters to see some aspect of the building?
And even if they dig from here, 1 meter is enough to see already the walls of the building.
Well, that's a fascinating mystery.
Yeah.
Do sonar, can't they do
Ground penetrating radar will give you a lot of information about what's inside. It wouldn't even be that expensive to do, and it's totally non-destructive.
But perhaps Vasquez hasn't thought about it.
Well, I don't know.
We should tell him.
Ground penetrating radar. That's what we need.
Ground.
Ground. The technology is quite good. Ground penetrating radar looks into the ground and sees the nature.
What is there?
Like an X-ray?
And it does no damage. The technology must be here in Armenia. Somebody could bring
it. Georadar?
Yeah.
Ունենք, բայց ես նրանց հետ էլի գնացել եմ, ինչքան ասում չեն գալու։
So we have it in Armenia, but the problem is when he turned to them, they rejected. They don't come to.
They don't want to look.
They won't bring it here.
Same story. Happens all over the world.
Why? So strange.
And the guy says that there
Take a
is
shovel
some,
and dig.
I'd be down. 3
something
meters?
like terracotta there,
Yeah.
but pressed terracotta.
This is terrible.
Sarah, we need shovels. We need shovels. Tell them we need shovels right now.
Dude, I'd do it.
The work team here.
I know you do it.
Why don't you do this?
Yeah.
Որտեղ կբռնենք դրանից հետո բանա Զավրետ ադրե։ Հասմիկ Պողոսյանը։
You know why they don't dig it? I have just asked. They answered that the minister of our culture, forbidden them to dig here. That's why they're not doing themselves.
Right.
Մեկը քարտեզով եկավ, ես քարտեզով։
Why is it forbidden?
He says that in 1990s, one person came here with his own map, and he showed the doors of the building. He showed the doors, and afterwards he left.
Interesting, right? Now, among the stones and pillars found in the area is this one. And of course, the locals logically assume that this stone reflects what you'd find under that hill. They actually poured water on it to make the image stand out a bit more for us. But when I showed this picture to Marty Leeds, of course he picked up on the encoding of pi, where you have 2 vines on either side with 11 leaves each and a 7-step pyramid up to the capstone area. And 22 divided by 7 is actually pi. So it seems like there is probably a lot of depth in this area, and it is unfortunate to have another case where an authoritarian government has blocked excavation. Really makes you wonder who's behind that exactly and what their motivations might be.
Curses, these verses are my prison cell.
Alright, so I got nothing better to call this site than the Settlement of Spirits, because I'm not quite sure it had a name, but to tell you what you're looking at here, the story goes that about 12 years ago, there was a couple of villagers who had bought this land, fairly open and undeveloped land, and the wife started having dreams where she would be visited by spirits who would ask her to find their bodies on the property and give them a more proper burial. She told her husband about it, but he brushed her off, and after 6 or 7 months of these dreams, she finally got out here with some people, and they found plenty of remains. So we're standing in the little chapel they ended up building in honor of these people that they had found here. But let's go over to where the bodies were. And here you can see there were plenty, but these graves cut in the rock is where they were found. In fact, this is the rooftop to a tomb that you're going to see in a minute. And you'll also notice a bunch of smaller round and square holes cut in the same rock as these graves. And we don't really know what was in there, but they are interesting to see. Apparently they had some archaeologists come out and date the settlement to the 3rd century BC, so take that for what it's worth. But not much is known about it from a historical perspective, just that these nagging spirits in the woman's dreams led to its excavation. I also mentioned in part 1 that we'd talk more about giants later, and that time has arrived. Our guide Vazgen, over the course of the trip, he did make several references to areas where giant skeletons had been found, but the spot he seemed most certain about was on the hill right across this road, where he said with confidence that a skeleton of 2.5 meters was found. That, of course, is 7.5 feet, so pretty impressive frame. And it wasn't clear if there was a connection between the giant skeleton and the rest of the excavation here. I assumed that there wasn't, but it is something I had to throw in for you. Now here's the entrance to that tomb. All the graves you just saw carved in the rock would be the roof of this room down below, and you can see just how much space was carved out in here, how many people can actually stand inside, though it was a little bit too tight of a shot to capture it all that well. You do see beds carved in the walls and floor, small inlays above the beds where something related to the burial ritual might have gone. And I'll shut up long enough just for Vazgen to try demonstrating the seemingly precise resonance effects from a particular spot.
It's quite
Now, in person, that did kind of sound interesting, to be honest. And just take a look around at some of the other intriguing aspects of this structure and try to mentally roll back the erosion, and you can see it being a pretty impressive place. Because of the burial aspects, there were dark suggestions to this spot that perhaps sacrificed bodies would be, for example, stacked here to allow blood flow through to the next chamber. But you could also see a possibility that this area was probably way different in the past, and maybe this was a lavish two-tiered relaxation or healing pool of some type. I only say healing because when it comes to some of the spots on the tomb, it's said that if you stand over them and concentrate, you will see some strange imagery in your mind's eye, including the image of a key. And so magical elements of all sorts were being speculated about. And maybe the sacrifice possibility does make sense if we have frustrated spirits fixated on getting their remains removed from the rock, but it is hard to say. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call the settlement of spirits.
This could be love, love for fire.
When you enter the complex, you may see the first these gates. Why we stop here? In 2001, we were celebrating 1700th anniversary of establishment of Christianity in Armenia. You know, Armenia is the first country that in 301 adopted Christianity as a state religion and became the first Christian country in the world. Here you may see the gates was built in the framework of this event. And on the gates you may see St. Gregory the Illuminator, our first Catholicos, to your right side. And in front of him is our King Turdad, during whose reign we adopted Christianity. This much about this part, let's go inside. So,
the fantastic thing is you can see the exact same patterns on Celtic crosses in Scotland.
Yeah.
The same type?
Yeah.
Same, There is definitely.
You should concentrate on your prayers, but not to look the ornamentations inside the church. Here you may see two apostles, St. Peter and Paul. Why they are depicted here? And somehow they are preparing us to enter the church. And you may see in his hand, in the hand of Peter, there is a key. Usually apostles are depicting in Armenian church with something which is typical, which is characterizing them, either by which they were killed or tortured. It can be sword, knife, etc. He is symbolizing the door of paradise. It means he has the key to the paradise, and those who believe can enter there. Okay. So let's go inside.
So Sarah Noosh broke things down pretty well there, and Graham also had an interesting comment. But this is considered the oldest Christian cathedral. We happen to get there during a period of restoration, but I still think there is a very THC way to look at a lot of the artwork and engravings that you'll see. There's some real strangeness to the symbols in a few areas, and the cathedral has gone through many periods of neglect and restoration. It's been ransacked before as well, So most of what you see isn't as old as the cathedral itself, which was built over a pagan temple too, by the way, to really drive it home symbolically that Christianity was going to be the top of the pile going forward. But the tradition is still very old and orthodox and very different from an American Christian church. I mean, these guys don't look fun or happy at all. And we're going to get into that in a big way in the last segment in this video. But the service going on here is just a small preview of the general tone with the priests in these old cathedrals. So take a look around, and I'll see you on the other side. Amen.
I crashed before the birth of Christ, pterodactyl swarming.
All right, people, here is where things start to get pretty wild. So what you're seeing now is our caravan up to the area called Ughtasar, which is quite a bit off the beaten path, as you can probably tell. We had a couple of moments where I wasn't even sure we were all going to get there, but eventually we did. And the reason for going through this hassle is that Ughtasar is home to petroglyphs that we're told are 12,000 years old. Now, I'm not sure where that date comes from exactly, but it is right in that Younger Dryas time frame, which is what Graham's book is all about and was a huge focus during this trip because it was just coming out around that time. And I don't know if that makes me more or less confident about the dates we were given, but regardless, I've never seen stone carvings like this in person, so it was amazing to just be able to walk right up and touch them. No admission fee, no velvet ropes, and maybe there should be something, but it's hard enough to get out there as it is, and it is such a beautiful place too. Let me read from the info we got on it. While you see some of these carvings, most of them are pretty standard animal-type designs that you do see all over the world, but it was a milestone experience for me for sure. So Ughtasar is the site of an important archaeological find, a large petroglyph field at the top of Mount Ughtasar, which is 3,300 meters above sea level. The site is reached only by four-wheel drive in good weather, only in the months of July and August. The Ughtasar site is located by a small glacier lake nestled in the rim of an extinct volcano that blew itself out in the Pleistocene period. The lake can have ice flows year-round, and patches of snow in the area never completely melt. The carvings are found on stones that surround the lake. The number and development of the carvings suggests this field was used over thousands of years, beginning in the Paleolithic era. People from later eras, up until the Bronze Age, continued to record their prowess and beliefs on the stones. The largest variety and number of carvings date to this period and the earlier Iron Age, before it was finally abandoned except for a few carvings made by lonely shepherds spending their summers on the mountaintop. The rudimentary carvings are amazingly perceptive, recounting origin myths and tribal traditions, emotions, beliefs, defeats, and victories of the ancestors. Most images depict men in scenes of hunting and fighting, cultivating land, competing, and dancing. There are numerous cosmic symbols, including one for the zodiacal sign Aries, and rudimentary calendars carved like wheels for dividing time by using a cross and 4 circles for the seasons. Geographical elements are also featured: rivers, lakes, springs, etc., followed by astronomical bodies and phenomena: the sun, the moon, stars, stellar constellations, comets, and lightning. Among the more complex carvings are what some would say are among the earliest depictions of dance in the ancient world. Scenes of ceremonial dance with 2 or more figures. Others show figures performing, perhaps relating, a famous fight or hunt. Other scenes are social in nature, depicting moments revolving around the central figure's place in society, or performing ritual acts. This is the center of special bioenergy. In Armenia, Ughtasar means alliance with Orion. So that's the info they gave us, and you're going to hear more about Orion in part 3 because the Karahoon stone circle has carvings that align with Orion's belt on the Armenian New Year. But for now, I'll just let you hear the few clips worth hearing despite the wind as we sort of tried to figure out what we were looking at. Graham is big on the psychedelic perspective, as am I, so he looks at some of the animals as hybrids or something depicted from a psychedelic journey, and you can see where you come down on that for yourself. Another thing I would keep in mind is the stuff David Talbot talks about in Thunderbolts of the Gods. Of course, I've interviewed him on THC, but some of those symbols could be electrical currents in the sky. So a lot of things to think about. Also, right here, you're going to see the ibex, which some people look at this symbol and they think that it is a flying saucer taking off. But in Graham's presentation, he really made a pretty clear case that this is an animal that was in this region at the time called an ibex, and its horns do form a semicircle that goes all the way back to its tail pretty much. And you can see there is a gap in a lot of these too. So he rained on that parade, but it's still a really interesting sight.
Comes around there. This looks like a piece of my imagination's running wild. Technology.
Oh yeah. Some of those patterns you showed us in the presentation.
Yeah.
That could
it's
be
all part of one thing.
Yeah.
It's just what they painted after their
And then next to this,
I'm sure about it.
Oh, yeah, the
could be,
visual explanation is the best.
if it was like electrical current and then the
That's what it feels like to me.
energy going out.
Yeah. This one, you. This, I think this is worth a shot. No, but just shoot it with this and this. So from this side. Of course you have. I'm sorry, darling. I'm teaching Granny to sing. You see that as a serpent.
This is a serpent.
Oh, interesting.
And this goes like a.
Yeah.
It looks like an antoptic.
Antoptic pattern, yeah.
What does antoptic mean?
Well, it literally means within the eye. There are certain patterns which are common to visionary experience all around the world, and the early stages of those are, for example, zigzags, starbursts, spirals.
Right.
Everybody sees them, often brightly coloured, scintillating. And then you go deeper into trance and you start entering the parallel world and seamlessly convincing entities speak to you. And this is like the gateway. No, I didn't initially see it as a serpent. Well, I started exercising my imagination and thinking a piece of technology like some kind of electric circuit or something like that.
You know what else is interesting?
Irresponsible of me.
Graham, you know what else is interesting? It's like, if you look at this thing we keep looking at, these animals are like going towards it.
Yeah, they're all heading for it. And then there's this bizarre figure here.
Yeah.
What about this?
And there's that figure upside down.
There's that figure upside down, and what's this one doing?
It's like, what if this is like some kind of portal sucking things in?
Yeah, drawing things in.
And if
It's an ancient rule.
It does.
if this were to be a serpent, that could jive with the psychedelic interpretation.
Sure it could, yeah.
On this side of the wall, we have typical animals. On this side, we got an alien.
We've entered another realm. Yeah.
So you're saying that's a wall?
Possibly.
That's the gateway. That's the veil between realms. Here we're in the terrestrial realm, and now we've passed through the portal.
Oh my God! Is that a head went on a
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
man.
my God! I just realized it.
And there's another one upside down, the same figure.
Yeah.
So that was no accident. And then you get over here to the human animal.
Am I misinterpreting that, or is that a bow?
That looks like a boat.
Oh, I didn't
It
even
does
see
look like
that.
a boat.
And if that's a
Where?
boat,
They're bow.
do we have evidence of bows
Yeah.
going back
With a person.
We're talking 12,000 years, perhaps.
50,000?
Not 50,000, but certainly 12,000 every year.
Graham, you could really stretch the imagination and imagine if this was all like one wall at some point, and you got this leading into over there is where the animal-human hybrids are.
Okay, so we actually have a built complex here sometime in the past. Well, I believe the imagination is one of the senses. You know, we have taste, we have touch, we have smell, we have sight,
Right.
we have hearing, and we have imagination.
And this is very close to these big hand creatures. It's very close. This might have been the same wall at some point. The tail here is very interesting.
Yeah, what do you think? It's actually an ancient cartoon book.
It
This, what do you make of this one? What do you make of this one here? And this weird thing.
Those are so strange.
If you're gonna make the case that anything could be a UFO.
Yeah, this is where they come UFO land, definitely.
It's got two eyes in a
We got a UFO dropping off these big hand aliens here.
There it is.
Here is the main stone of Adam and Eve, and here you may see the tree and the apple here.
Is there a reason why? Are they just saying Adam and Eve just to say it?
Yeah, because the serpent, and there's some hint of a person, and that's the reason.
Yeah, that is probably the most interesting one.
I think so. There's lots of nice feline creatures depicted up here too. There's a feline figure with a long tail.
Let's see, we're looking at this here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's kind of a human head.
The head doesn't look feline.
You can see the tail here,
Yeah.
the body.
At the top there it starts to look like a human being. The shoulders and the head.
Yeah,
The back half is animal.
boom. That's what I would love to see, more hybrids.
High five.
As far as the leopards go, I mean, look at this one.
Yeah.
And that looks like another one below.
Yeah,
But
but
the more
that's
he-
extremely human, the one below.
Yeah.
With the bent forearms. I mean, that's unmistakably the human upper parts. The human head and shoulders and human forearms.
Here's a figure. And there's a figure that's got horns, but not the typical ibex. You can see.
So some kind of reindeer or...
Yeah.
That one's like the reindeer.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
This must be a dog. They led my elementals led me up here.
Did you find it, Aaron?
Yes, my elementals led me up here.
Yay!
This is a nice one.
Fabulous.
That is really something.
Can you?
Graham to come and see this. Yeah, I'll get out of the way.
Oh, I
Did you
just wanted
get
you to
Graham's
point it out for
house?
the camera if you can trace it for me.
There's the clock. See that's the cross member. That's the cloud.
Graham!
That's the rod that is attached.
Graham!
Here are the
You have to see this!
And now you see why I'm narrating over a lot of this footage. Too many people talking at one time. But it is a beautiful area, again, awesome to see in person, and I grabbed some clearer images off of Google just so you can get a better sense of things and the details in these carvings. But to touch these petroglyphs made thousands of years ago, it's heavy.
Don't be fooled by counting dreams that never will come true.
Alright, here we start with another little action sequence, but this is our group in a cable car that they call the Wings of Tatev, Tatev being the monastery at the end of the line. But this cable car, it took a while, as it is 3.5 miles long, which makes it the longest single-section reversible aerial tram in the world, and it also holds the record for longest non-stop double-track cable car. It also cost $18 million, which was largely given by private donors. And this is where we get a little bit conspiratorial, because Tatev is the site of a very ancient type of technology referred to as the swinging pillar that we came to see in action, and after a couple of tense altercations were ultimately denied of that privilege. And we'll get deeper into that, but how often do we see powerful people interested in the old ways? Some other interesting facts are that this monastery was built in the 9th century and that it was much more than just a church. It's always been considered a major Armenian center of knowledge. During the Middle Ages, there were 3 universities here, and I have a brief translation from a manuscript describing the activities here, and keep in mind the types of hidden and ancient technologies we've talked about over the years, but it reads, "In one department, they taught music and melodious motives by the teachers who were the first in this field. and many students from different countries and cities came to study here. In another department, they taught different schools of the arts, and in a third department, they taught Christian literature and pagan sciences. So the big takeaway here is that this place really seemed like an Armenian Alexandria at one point, and when the Christianity caravan reached them, it was the first Catholicos, Gregory the Illuminator, funny enough, who led the campaign to bury the sacred knowledge under a thick layer of Christianity. I also find the word that they use for their pope, Catholicos, to be such an interesting term. It would make a great title for a book about the crimes of religious authorities of their day. But it is this history and context that makes the monastery interesting, more than just what you can see. You get a real sense of esoteric and exoteric here. That there's something these monks and priests know and keep to themselves. I mean, that's not even debatable, considering how they refused to show the mystery pillar. And we know they maintain a calendar different from the mainstream because it's on the night of the Armenian New Year where the 3 belt stars of Orion align perfectly with this pillar. But I'll do what I did with the petroglyphs and just show you what I got. But I will also say the religious services here didn't seem like any Christian services that I've seen, and there was something very black magic about it, at least in my opinion. They'll tell you this is an Armenian tourism hotspot, but to me it felt like a strangely isolated place, and it was not only miles from the nearest city, but also like I stepped back in time a few hundred years. We also saw some carvings and aspects of the complex that hint at sunray alignments, capturing and filtering of water, those old mystical traditions, and things like journeying. But it is hard to know what all this stuff is for sure. Some could just be decoration or have a simple explanation. But I'll give you a couple more pieces of context, and I'll read some lines for the info we were given. But in regards to the pole, it says, "Here is the 8th wonder of the world, the swinging pole, a hinge-based stone pillar fenced and carefully guarded by thick stone walls. There are millions of columns, pillars, and obelisks in the world, but only in Tatev, a multi-ton pillar can swing at the mere touch of a hand. Using their fundamental knowledge in the fields of astronomy, mathematics, physics, chemistry, philosophy, architecture, and construction, our ancients established this unique pillar, where the mysteries of the universe, the mysteries of time, and the secrets of that calendar have been encrypted. The swinging pillar is a celestial compass pointing to the constellation of Orion." Now, as for the drama we experienced, I'll just give you the context that Vazgen, Saranush, and Graham all approached the acting head priest of the day in different combinations with different pleas to see if they would unlock and demonstrate the mysterious movement of this ancient celestial marker, which, for one thing, aligns with those Orion belt stars on the Armenian New Year, which was the next day. And when I look at this pillar, I wonder if maybe some things are lost in translation, because they say that it swings from the bottom, and then I look at how it's locked up and how the stones seem to sort of be stacked. I think about floating stones, chanting monks, and this sort of thing. But knowing that people used to travel from all over the world to go to the universities here in the Center for Knowledge, and that they used to teach melodious motives and pagan science, I think that might seem like a likely candidate. Clearly, they had no interest in helping us or showing us. They were very cold and insulting, and probably were just a bit on edge because Vazgen is known locally as an alternative researcher, let's just say, or a troublemaker to guys like the priests of Tatev. But here are some scenes from this seemingly joyless, culty Christian service where women are asked to cover their heads, as well as the drama we experienced around the pillar.
The church was divided like into 2 parts, the ones who had this knowledge and the ones who didn't.
Yes.
Gregory the Illuminator, our first Catholicos from the 4th century, he said that he came from the west to destroy all this knowledge, to have kind of religious revolution here.
ինքը ուզում էր ջնջեր հայկական լեզուն, հայկական
he wanted to destroy like Armenian language, Armenian religious songs, sharakans.
Սա գրքերը վառեցին։
They burned all the books we had from that before Christianity.
Սաղ տաճարները
All the
քանդեցին։
temples were destroyed that we had before Christianity.
Եվ լցրեցին հայկական եկեղեցին ասորիներով։
And they filled Armenian churches with Assyrians.
Եվ ոչ մի հայկական լեզու չէր հնչում։
And in Armenian church you may hardly listen to Armenian language during the mass ceremony.
5-րդ դարում Մեսրոպ Մաշտոցը եւ Սահակ Պարթևը գնացին թագավորի
and Sahak Partev. Mesrop Mashtot was the one who founded Armenian alphabet, and Sahak Partev was Catholicos of that time. In the 5th century they went to the king of that period of time, to Ramshapuh king.
And
they told them that we need to change all the stuff that Gregory established. Ramshapuh, at that time king, said, okay, you may do this.
Իրան գալիս են ստեղ Անգեղակոտ մենք անցել ենք Սիսիանի մոտ։ Այնտեղ այդ հին իմացյալները ապրում էին։
So they came here, Angerakot, it's not far from here, and those people who had the knowledge, we had some still there in that village, they went there. They asked them not to quarrel with the Christian church, at that time Christian church. And to come to be here to become priests, the ones who had the knowledge. And kind of restore all the knowledge here in the 5th century. They agreed and they came. In the 5th century they started to build cruciform churches. They established new rules in our church. After the 5th century they built the pillar. This is the answer to your question. In this territory we had almost at least 4 academies. If we count Tatev together it will be 5. In 1884 Hovannes Imastaser in the 19th century, who was a reformer of calendar. At that time he made the calendars like stable. There was some mistake in the year 528 days.
Ինքը չէր իմանում 84 թիվ տաներ, թե 83 տաներ, վերջը 84 թիվ դրեց, օգոստոսի 11-ը հետ 29-ն էր փետրվարի։
Gets confusing and complicated at a certain point.
He didn't know to take it back to 1882, or to come back to 1884. You understand?
I don't.
Me too.
I'm afraid.
It's to unlock the pillar.
Unlock the pillar? I will try to...
For this very special group, just for 2 minutes, so we can take away a beautiful memory of Armenia.
Shall we go together?
Yes.
Let's go.
Good luck. In the 5th century, the priests here know the secret, and even the window of our altar, from the window of our altar you may see the Zarian rising. That they counted in the way in order the window to...
It's most unfortunate that the present generation of priests have a different view. I actually, the encounter that we had with that guy just now has left me feeling physically sick. It has. To me, he symbolizes everything that's wrong with Christianity. Everything that's wrong with Christianity. A bigoted, old, judgmental priest who the kind of person who used to burn people at the stake. Really, you can see it in his eyes, in his face. He's an ugly, evil man, and really wrong.
Relax. We can go. Relax. Are you assuming that I didn't say that? Everyone else says. Sorry, did everyone else?
No, they didn't. Go and talk to him.
You might be able. We went together. We went together to the head priest.
Right, okay.
He's sitting in the altar.
And he told you this in Armenian and...
She translated for me, yes.
And he said?
He said that we're all pagans, we're here to destroy Christianity, and he refuses to show us this miracle.
Plan and
This
say,
is
sorry, we are Catholic, we are traveling in Armenia to visit all the holy places and the Christian monasteries.
Stroke the ego.
No.
He says that because we came with Mr. Rozgan, he is not allowed.
But you could have waited, no? You should
They don't like it. But it doesn't matter.
You know,
what you need to tell them.
Or do we have any...
Came from all
over the world have nothing to do.
In actual fact, we ate it.
So who's our delegation?
So there was an eeriness, like we were butting up against an elusive brotherhood that does hold some type of knowledge and probably carries on traditions from the earlier eras, including at a minimum, keeping a different calendar, and this pillar is central to that, as well as some type of mysterious movement that we weren't allowed to see, and it requires braces and locks around the stones all the way up. I gotta say, it was a pretty memorable experience to say the least. Oh yeah, and Vazgen was also pretty adamant that the area around Tatev is one of Armenia's major UFO hotspots. Not too surprised.